Where's all your money going? I know that sometimes when we spend our money, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. We don't really want to think about it too much. We know we're spending it, and we also might know that we're spending it in some places that we shouldn't be spending it, but it's time to get down to the nitty-gritty. It's time to be real with ourselves. If you're new to my channel, this is Ange 2.0, where I teach you how to improve your life one day at a time. And today we are talking about expense trackers. Expense trackers. Now, what is an expense? An expense is basically just a fancy term for something you're spending money on. Part of budgeting is knowing what types of money is coming in and when your money is going out. The reason why expense tracking is so important for budgeting is because you need to know where your money is going. You need to know how much you're spending, if you're overspending, and where we need to make some adjustments, right? Today I'm going to show you how to track your expenses. It's not very hard to do. It's just a matter of looking up where you've been spending your money, writing it down, and then making adjustments. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need before we even get into the whole expense tracking thing is you're going to need a few supplies. Number one, you're going to need some sort of expense tracker. Now, there are a ton of free expense trackers online. However, I created one and I'm going to post the link in the description. It's free for you. There are a couple of different options. There are some that are in color. There's one that's more minimalistic. You can use these as needed and they are super helpful. They do the job. If you are more of an app person, maybe you want to find an app and use it on your phone. Now, there are a ton of different apps out there that you can track your expenses with. I would recommend though, if you're kind of starting out with all of this, I would just recommend doing it on paper. And if you don't want to use an expense tracker of any sort, you don't want to use any sort of spreadsheet like on Google Sheets or anything like that, you can always just use a notebook and write your expenses in there. Today, I'm going to be using my iPad with my expense tracker, and I'm going to be using the app GoodNotes. If you're unfamiliar with GoodNotes, it essentially takes any PDF and makes it interactable. So you can write on the PDF, you can draw on it, and I really like using GoodNotes with PDFs because it just makes it so easy and manageable. So this is what the paper version of the expense tracker looks like. You can see that it has the category codes at the top and it has 4 columns. You have the date, the name of the expense, the category, which will follow one of the categories from up top, and then the dollar amount is going to be on the right. At the top, you can also circle the month that you're currently in when you're doing this. As I stated before, I'm going to be using my iPad and the GoodNotes app to do this. Again, the great thing about this is that you can kind of zoom in, zoom out, and manipulate this however you want. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that we are noting the correct month. So I'm going to say, yep, we are in April. So I'm just going to highlight that. And I briefly want to go over these category codes. So you have groceries, which is your milk, bread, things like that. Groceries is kind of an expense that is separate from fast food. Fast food is optional and it's something we kind of like to do on a whim, but groceries is more of an intentional expense. Transportation, if you have a car that requires gasoline, or you take the bus and you need bus fare, this category is specifically set aside for that. For housing, if you are in an apartment or if you have a house, this is your mortgage payment or your rent payment. Utilities is just your water bill, your electricity bill, gas, things like that. That would fall under utilities. For clothing, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's just basically the clothing that you go out and buy. Medical is any sort of co-pays that you're paying. If there are any medical bills, that would fall under the medical category. Insurance, I put separately because insurance could be medical insurance, it could be car insurance, it could be dental. So I created my own category for that. If you have a pet, then that would include food, that would include any sort of grooming or vet bills. Household items would be things that you're buying for the house. Is it an air filter for the furnace? Is it furniture? Are there towels? Things of that nature. Debt is another category I put in here, and that encompasses anything that you need to pay money back for. So if it's a student loan, if it's a credit card, that would fall under the debt category. Entertainment is just what it sounds like. If you are spending money on either video games or going out to the movies, Fast food, I feel, would fall under entertainment only because it is a non-essential item. However, if you wanted to, you could even have fast food as a separate category altogether. And school, if you need to buy supplies or books, any sort of fee that's associated with school would fall under that category. Now, if you notice on the right, I do have this blank section. If you did want to create your own categories, I always recommend that people do what's comfortable for them. So if you don't like any of these, part of the tracker that's linked in the description is one that just includes all blank parts. That way you can come up with your own categories and you don't have to use the ones that are given here. Now you'll notice that each of these category codes has a little space on the left. This is what I like to use this for. I'm gonna find my color, and regardless if you're using the paper version or the digital version or whatever, I like to color code this, and the color coding really makes this expense tracking work. So let's say I'm gonna use blue, and every time I see blue, that's gonna mean groceries. So when I'm done listing out all my expenses, I'm gonna go back and highlight them according to their color code. So let me just go through this real quick and create some colors for the other categories, and then we'll go from there. In addition to using a highlighter, you can also use different shapes. So if you notice, I've used quite a few different colors for my category codes. However, if you don't have this many colors, or even if you want to use a different method, you could always revert to shapes. So for example, if I use a circle for debt, that's what it's going to be. If it's a squiggly line for entertainment, then that's what I'm going to use for entertainment. Okay, so now that I have all of my category codes set up and the highlighting colors or shapes that I'm going to use with each category, now it is time to start the tracking process. So remember, we have 4 different columns here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open up on my end my bank account, and I'm just going to start listing all the expenses I've had for the past 2 weeks. Now, when you do this, ideally you would use it for the last 30 days, but just to kind of show you how it's done, I'm gonna list the past 2 weeks. And if you want to take this slow and just start off with 1 week, that's fine too. The whole point of this is to get started and see where your money is going. So if you want to start small and just do 1 week, that is totally fine, and eventually gradually move up to a month, that's great. So now let's start the writing process. So you can see that the 2 additional entries and expenses that I included are Microsoft, which again falls under entertainment. So this is a conversation that's going to need to be had with my sons because they are the ones that are using this. So that's another thing, is that these are expenses that just kind of pop up and you don't really realize it. But if I were to total these up just for entertainment alone, I mean, that's a chunk of change that could have gone to a bill or savings of some sort, right? Once you do your initial expense tracker, this will get easier every time after, because you'll realize some of these categories you don't necessarily use, or you might have your specific ones that you created on your own, so that just becomes easier. So now that you have all your expenses for the past week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or month down, now this is the important part. You're going to want to, like I said before, look at the patterns of spending. Where are you spending most of your money? What are some places that you can make some changes so that your money is going into places that will better serve you? You might see that this is actually a real eye-opener, and it might be a little bit embarrassing because you're like, ooh, I didn't realize I was spending this much money on whatever. But that is the whole point, is to be honest with yourself and really lay it out there on the table and see what is going on with your money. Now the next step is just making yourself a small goal to change one of those categories. Either change how much you're spending in each category, maybe eliminating a category altogether, or just really adjusting your spending overall. It's also my recommendation that regardless of which method you use, you are doing this consistently. I would make sure that you're doing this on a weekly basis, either entering or logging in your expenses on a spreadsheet, on the document that I'm providing, or in a notebook, just to get used to doing that and revisiting those finances often. It is essential to do this if you want to keep good, healthy financial habits. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe, and turn your notifications on so that you can receive more tips and suggestions to help you with your finances. Also, be sure to share this with somebody who you think might benefit from this. I think no matter what age we're at, keeping track of where your money is going is so important, and it is absolutely key to making positive changes happen. After you try this out, let me know in the comments, what areas or what categories did you find yourself spending the most money in? What did you learn from this? Do you feel like this was beneficial for you? Make sure you stay tuned for upcoming videos where we're going to discuss more about finances and how to help you build an overall better life for yourself. See you in the next video.